Hey everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod here to discuss MSU's 80-78 win over the Fighting Illini to move their winning streak to 11 games, 7-0 in the Big Ten, alone in first place, and 16-2 overall. Before we start, a quick thanks to Michael Yoakum for his donation on PayPal. Thanks a lot, Michael. And also big thanks to Scott Driscoll, who moved up from the Draymond Green level to the Mateen Cleaves level on Patreon. We really appreciate the support. You guys are awesome and help keep us on the air and bring you the best MSU Hoops content on the interwebs. If you'd like to join the cool kids and support the show, head on over to our support page at tffinots.com/support to get the necessary links. At a minimum, we could really use some written reviews on your podcast player. That really helps the Spartans find our show through all the mysterious algorithms. All right, Rod, let's talk about the game. MSU wins the game over Illinois 80-78, and I can now cancel my cardiac stress test. As you predicted, it was a one-score game, came down to the wire as Illinois had the ball with under 30 seconds left, down 1 point. Boswell got the switch on a Cooper outside the arc, and I did what I thought he should do, which is drive the lane. But instead of putting up a shot, he chose to pass it to Ivizic, who I think was looking for a rebounding position, never saw the ball coming, kind of threw it over his head a little bit. Ball went back to Michigan State. Trey Hallman hit a few free throws to go up 3. MSU fouled. I asked you what Izzo would do, and you said he'd foul, and he did. And then Boswell with the first. Intention missed the second. And then through some really strange bounces, he ended up with the ball behind the basket, threw up a shot, just desperation, hit the back of the backboard, I think, and that gave it back to Michigan State.
It was actually that it was shot over the backboard. You can't do
Oh,
that.
okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it didn't look like it hit it, but I thought okay.
No.
Well, anyway, so there are a lot
But
of places.
they were. I mean, what's the difference? I mean, he took the shot and he missed it. There wasn't anybody there to get the rebound, so it didn't really matter. I mean, even if you'd said,
Well, it's like one of those Larry Bird. Didn't Larry Bird shoot some?
He sure did, but Larry Bird made his.
He also wasn't in that position, in fairness to Boswell. So so there are a lot of places and ways to go, including, I think, to talk about the game. One is it's Illinois struggling from 3 after the early in the game. Their inability to hit threes. But instead, they really carved up Michigan State on the backdoor cuts. I mean, zillion of those. Yakionis hardly playing because of foul problems. But I think I'd like for you to start discussing Trey Hallman, who I think we are not maybe as guilty as others as to not discuss him and give him enough credit for his upperclassman sort of poise. But I think we should probably start with him because, he's obviously leading scorer. But this is the second straight game where he came in, a game that's tight at the end. He's on the point, Fears on the bench. And, frankly, he delivered.
Yeah, he did. And I would say actually where I thought he was most important was not there. It was in the early stages of the game when he was the only offense Michigan State had going. So it enabled them to stay in contact with Illinois, who just had an insane start to that game. Much of it on the backs of Will Riley, who was just incredible in the first half and then barely heard from. I think he had one basket in the after about the 10-minute mark.
When Michigan State had 16 points, Illinois was going to be up 26-16. He had 16 he had the same as Michigan State, and then I think he didn't score after that point, pretty much until the late in the second. Yeah,
but Trey, you look at the game. 17 points, which I believe was a team high, right? Yeah, one of 3 guys in double digits. He had 17. Didn't hit threes. He was 0 for 3 from 3, but 7 for 8 at the line, 5 for 9 from the floor. So some good efficiency there. 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, which was a huge block, and 1 steal. But yeah, he played really, really well. I mean, and I thought he played well defensively. I thought he hung in there. So it was a good game from him. But I think that you're right in that there are a lot of different things to talk about in this game. One of them is something you mentioned, dealing with slip screen action.
Mm-hmm.
And MSU they got killed by it, right? But I think
the choice, wasn't it?
It was, and that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I think that Michigan State, especially when you're playing good opponents, you don't take away everything. You can't. Mm-hmm. Good teams are good teams for a reason, right? And they're not going to allow you to take everything away. So Michigan State came into this game having made a choice, as I thought they might, to try to take away the 3. Illinois takes a lot of them. Now, there's 2 things at work here. One is Michigan State actually held them well under their seasonal average in attempts. So remember, we talked about it. They averaged they averaged a little over 48% of their overall shots from the floor coming from three. I don't have my calculator out, but
36% of their
12
field
out
goal
of
attempts
36.
were threes.
So there you go. That's very significant. And then on top of that, held them down, way down in terms of the percentage that they made. They came in averaging 33%. They shot 21.
Yeah.
So that was clearly, look, Michigan State, if you watch the game, you know this. They were really aggressive in terms of how much they extended out, how aggressive the hedging was.
Yeah.
When you do that, and I think we talked about this, right? When you do that against a team with a lot of good passers, and it goes beyond Yakos Silionis, they've got a team full of them. It's tough. And what I didn't fully appreciate enough until seeing this game play out was it's not only them being more vulnerable to the slip screen action because of how aggressive they were in trying to take away the three, but Illinois' size positionally across every spot but where Boswell was playing.
Right. Yeah.
It made it really difficult to deal with because, again, Illinois, a good passing team, did a very good job at making sure those passes were high, where only the recipient was the rolling, slipping Illinois player was going to be able to get it. And that was, look, that's something where I'm more inclined to, as opposed to, say, the Penn State game, I'm more inclined to say, hey, hats off. You know, they executed time and time again with those places. Yes, Tom Izzo is going to use that as a teaching tool, and he's going to want and expect better. But I think more than that, it was more Illinois dealing with what Michigan State was giving them because they had to give them something. And then on top of that, really executing well by making use of their size advantage. And it was just tough. And those guys also, a lot of them, those were plays where they caught the ball and in one motion went into the shot. Like they were in the air. That's, it's impressive. Izzo said in his post game, he's now even more convinced than he was before the game tipped that that's the best team in the Big Ten. I'm not going to argue with him. I think they're really, really good. Thankfully, they also have 3 losses already. So that's and we've seen this before. Look, Illinois might be. I said several weeks ago that while I believed Michigan's, and I don't know if I said it here on Spartan Mag, but I know I said it somewhere, that I think Michigan State had a ton of room to grow, hadn't even come close to reaching its potential, but that Illinois had the highest ceiling of anybody in the league. And I said that primarily because of their 3 freshmen, the 2 Euros and Will Riley. Well, you didn't see it from Yakos Silionis, although you've seen it from him at other times, most of this year. But I think you saw it with the other 2. As to why I would say that. That's a really good team. And so to find a way to beat them, man, that is good stuff. And so I think the job Michigan State did in really shutting down Illinois' 3-point game should not be underestimated as a major factor in getting this win. It was huge. Because we said, and I think you saw the way the game played out. If Illinois had been if Michigan State had not been as sharp in terms of the way they were defending, and Illinois had been on fire from 3, it's game over against that team. Right. You're not going to beat that team if they're shooting 40% plus, or the only way you'll beat that team if they're doing that is if you're doing some unreal stuff yourself.
Oregon found that out when
in Eugene. That's how you get games like that.
Yeah.
If they're just dialed in from 3 with everything else they do and the problems they present, forget it. You're not beating them. Fortunately, they don't do that very often. Like we talked about in the pregame, they're a big volume team, not necessarily a great shooting team. And I think Michigan State made them even worse than that with the way they defended.
Well, it was a fantastic atmosphere in the Breslin. It was, those are the games when you win those games, they're fun to go to. When
Yeah.
you lose them, they're obviously not as much fun. It was obviously very sad about the Lions and just the way that sort of unfolded last night. And so I went into the game even more sort of anxious and just more
Yeah.
despondent, I guess, than it probably should. Of course, it's totally irrational. There should be, there's no reason that the Lions outcome affects Michigan State game, but that's just
No, but
kind of how it
it
felt.
affects people's moods.
Yeah.
That's at the very least. I mean, Jesus, yeah, this game, this puts a really, really nice end to the weekend after a
It
horrendous
would have,
Saturday
yeah, it would have been
night.
bad had they lost that game.
Really bad.
But as you said, it was a really good atmosphere. It was packed house. There were a number of Illinois fans, not a zillion of them, but there were still quite a few. Um, and then I guess the thing that the asterisk on this game is Illinois star player.
Not an asterisk.
Well, okay, so I'll just say this. So I think the official.
But
I don't want to talk much about the
I'll talk
officiating.
about why.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the officiating much.
It's not it's not officiating so much. It's how what led to that. But go
Right.
ahead.
So Michigan State, and it was game planned, right? Jeremy Fears right away went
Yeah,
after him and attacked him.
100%.
Drew two fouls. I mean, I think it's lucky that he got two fouls of contact, but he got him. And then Fiddler to finish him off in the second half when hadn't gotten going, but he got an and one, and so he was starting to do some things. I mean, I feel like when guys are on the bench for most of the game for foul trouble, when they come back later, it's just they're never
Mm.
quite get in the game, and so I didn't expect a whole lot of him. But he's a really good player. But that was a great play and super smart veteran play by Fiddler, knowing he's behind him, does a pump fake to get him to fall into him, and so that's just what Frank, what Frank is
I'm
really
gonna
good at.
I'm gonna disagree with that on Frankie because he had hit that three before that
Mm-hmm.
in the second half. So it was
Right.
in that same phase of the game. I actually thought he had done. I thought you said he hadn't really done that much. I think he had. I think he was really important and played more. What he played 21 minutes, and Cohen played 23. Why? Because Michigan State realized they had to do something to adjust to the size.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, this is why Michigan State's depth is so important. They have a roster that I'm not saying they will have the answers in terms of the end result every game they play, but they've got potential answers for pretty much anything an opponent can throw at them.
Yeah.
There are games where they might want to go four guards because of the way somebody matched up. They can do that.
Mm-hmm.
They can do what they did today, going much bigger, especially on the wings. But
Yeah, I was saying that Yakionis hadn't done much. I mean, Fiddler obviously
I'm sorry. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
he hadn't
Okay,
quite gotten going.
I
But I
didn't
was,
understand
yeah,
that.
no, that's
He
okay.
had played well.
And that was really good play by Fiddler there to just trick him,
Huge,
right? I mean, that was just a veteran
huge,
move, is all I was saying. Yeah,
total veteran move. I mean,
yeah,
that's what you expect a guy like that to do. That's the
yeah,
play. That's what you brought him here for. Moments like that, plays like that, where you step up and you deliver. And it was, he got him on his back. And I thought Michigan State did generally a really good job of that the whole day, getting Illinois defenders on the back of a guard and using that. It's something this team's Jeremy Fears in particular, but now you're seeing other guys do it as well.
yeah,
They've done very well. They did very well today. And that was just, I mean, Frankie knew where he was. He knew the situation, and he just hunted contact and got
yeah.
it done. It was huge. In overall, so the kid had 5 fouls, right?
Yes.
4 of them were absolutely situations where he was forced into it by what Michigan State did. You said the way Jeremy Fears started attacking him. You're absolutely right. And I guess you could say, well, maybe it was contact, but bullshit. Those were earned fouls. Okay. And the last one with Fiddler clearly was. It was just a great play by Fiddler. And
Yeah.
Yakusilionis was out of control. He was a little out of control, a little off balance behind him. That's on him. He can't make that play. The only one, and I didn't think, I don't know what you could see or not see at Breslin. The trip call where he got his fourth.
On Akins or on Cooper?
No, on Cooper.
Yeah, I feel like he grabbed his arm as he was falling, and so it was one of those kind of he's like
well,
almost
not
using to
only
break
that,
his fall. So I don't know.
He tripped him. He tripped him, and it looked like it was intentional. And in fact, I was surprised watching it live. Now, I don't know, maybe they called it, maybe the actual call was for pulling him down.
He called,
But
like, the ref was holding his arm like he's like it was
okay,
a grab, like, so I think he
all
pulled
right,
him to the
fair
ground. I
enough.
think that's what they're called.
He also tripped him as Coop was trying to get up, and he tripped him, and he tried. It was intentional. It was obvious. I was shocked they didn't go to the monitor to see if it was flagrant. I really was. So not only did I think he earned that call, I think it should have been worse. So I don't know. He put himself, Michigan State put him in those situations, and he made bad decisions.
Yeah.
Period.
Well,
no asterisk, no nothing. And I am going to talk about the officiating for a sec. I know you said you didn't want to, but I have to.
Yeah.
Because if you go online, you're going to see the Illinois fan base screaming about the whistle. You know what the final count was? Personal fouls in this game?
I think it was probably even, or Illinois had one less or something.
You
like that.
are dialed in. 20 to Illinois, 20 to Michigan State. Free throws.
Identical.
What was it?
Right?
Yeah, it was
both had 27 free throws.
27 for Michigan State.
Oh, 22.
27 for Illinois.
Yeah.
So
that's a home whistle.
Now you could say, yeah, but that doesn't account for the fact that KJ was in foul trouble for the whole game, and Will Riley got his fourth, had to sit out a lot of the second half. Hey, as I say, those guys made the decisions that they made to get a foul called. And Michigan State put them under pressure leading to that. So I don't want to hear that. Oh, and the final note on this, and we can talk about other things. I know that waiting around for college basketball fans to realize their own hypocrisy is like waiting for hell to freeze over. But seems to me that Illinois has generally gotten a pretty good whistle at the State Farm Center over the years. So, you're going to get your chance. You're going to get your chance.
I was the start of that second half was really, it was confusing as far as what was the foul, because I feel like there's no question Illinois got some fouls when they drove in the lane and got fouled. But I felt the same thing on the other end. Maybe I'm not as close, so maybe I was missing it, but it seemed like every time someone went in, there was a lot of contact, and which is fine if you don't call it, but then you got to call it both ends. And then they called some little ticky-tack fouls out on the perimeter. I know you've gone into this a lot of times about sort of what is a foul, what is it not, and it's just random. I think sometimes
if someone wants to say that it was an inconsistently officiated game both ways, I wouldn't argue with that. I don't think those guys were great, but this specifically, to that point, total foul calls, total free throw attempts were dead even. So you can't claim that was an issue. And then if you want to cry about your star being in foul trouble, maybe somebody at Barcelona should have taught him not to be that aggressive defensively.
Yeah.
Well, because he put it in my eyes, he put himself there. So anyway,
he started trying to make plays. Yeah, that's
enough
for sure.
of that. Yeah. The other thing I think was really, really important, and I haven't checked the stats on this to see, was rebounding, because in the first half
it was bad in the first half. Yeah,
it was disgraceful.
I think there's 7 offensive rebounds for Illinois, and Michigan State had 7 rebounds at some point in the first half. So it ended up about 42-41. I think it was edged to Illinois by 1 or something.
So Michigan State, the job they did, both ends really, because they shut Illinois' offensive rebounding down for the most part. Yeah. And they really got going on the offensive boards on their own end, where they weren't in the first half, made it essentially even. And I thought that was huge, because that was a big, big, big major factor in that first half, was just Illinois getting second chances relentlessly at times, it seemed. And it's how they were able to hang around in the game, even though Michigan State was out shooting, They ended up, they shot 42%. It was pretty close.
Yeah, they was identical
42%, 43. But I believe Michigan State had a significant advantage from the floor in the first half. And Illinois was able to hang around, to actually lead for most of the half and be tied at halftime due to their offensive rebounding in large part. So hats off to Michigan State for the second half performance. But I did think the first half troubles were things that Tom Izzo's not going to be very happy about.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, I thought in the first half, Illinois was just quicker to the ball. Yeah, there were some weird rebounds, long rebounds, which we kind of figured would be a factor because of the amount of threes they shoot. But I just thought there were a lot of examples of, say, an Illinois guard just being quicker than the guy who should be boxing him out. And that just didn't, or making, a better way to put it in Michigan State terms, is making contact with him. So making sure he's not getting that an easy, unimpeded path to the ball. And they just didn't do a very good job of it. I thought Illinois was a lot more aggressive. They were quicker to react. And I mean, that simple.
Yeah, I thought a good example of that was Riley had a shot early in the first half when he was doing all his damage when Yakunas was on the bench. He had a shot, it was a short shot. Jaden Akins was guarding him. He missed like a 4 or 5 foot jump shot or something. And Akins, instead of boxing him out, just kind of like started fading away. And then Riley got his rebound, had an easy layup off the board. So that was an example.
There were lots of them. There were,
yeah, but that was like the two kind of what's going on.
The two smallest guys on the floor, I got to look to see what they ended up with for them. Boswell had 2 offensive rebounds. And yeah, Gibbs Lawhorn had 4. That should never happen. And he got them because of exactly what I just talked about. He was quicker to the ball and went around or past bigger players. He did it to Cohen once. And,
yep.
Yeah.
They were all in the first half, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's where the problems were.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a first half issue that Michigan State largely sorted out in the second half, but that's something I guarantee you Tom Izzo will be working that this week. And they've got some time now, which is something we'll talk about later, I guess. They've got time to work on themselves because they've got 6 days.
Well, obviously a big win, now 7-0 all alone in first place. You have Michigan and Purdue with 1 loss. I don't know. I don't know if Michigan's finished that game yet.
They haven't yet, but it looks like they're about to. They're up 2 with 16 seconds left. So you might not get treated to another yell from me as Michigan goes down.
Anyway,
I thought we might. It was setting up for that because it's an OT.
It's not impossible for Illinois to come back, but they're down 3 games in the standings, which is just harder. They can certainly make it back, and there's a lot of games left to play.
There are, but here's the thing. Today's loss, not a big deal. I forget where. The one at Northwestern. Yeah, they'd like to have that, but a road loss against a team that's competitive, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
The home court loss to USC is going to loom very large for them, I think, at the end of the year. If they end up like a game short of the title, that's the one you're going to point to and say, there's no way in the world, Yakusilionis or no Yakusilionis, that should have ever happened. No way. Not in Champaign. And so if they end up short, they only got themselves to blame for that. Now, I will say the fact that they have that road win at Oregon and by a blowout does mitigate some of that, but not enough. You can't, if you want to win a Big Ten title, you probably need 1 or 2 of those.
Well, you don't want to go 10-10, right?
Right. But I mean, you're going to, if you're a good team, you go and say, all right, there's certain games that are gimmies, at Minnesota. Yeah. Sorry, right. Michigan.
You're not sorry. Don't lie.
There's certain games that you look at Washington, which they did get. There's certain games you look at, but at Oregon, even though I think Oregon is a little bit fraudulent, that's still really impressive, to get that one. But then you give it right back by losing, and it wasn't that close. They lost by 10. It wasn't like they had a half court or shot from the logo go in. It's just that's one that I think is going to haunt them. That's also why I understand, and I can see why someone like Tom Izzo looks at that team and says, "Yeah, that's the best team or the most talented team in the Big Ten." I can see that, but you know what? The counter to it is best teams don't lose at home to a team like SC. Best teams probably find a way to win at Northwestern. I mean, Michigan State did. It wasn't that close.
Yeah.
So I,
Yes.
I'm impressed by Illinois. And I think it was a huge deal that Michigan State won this game, and I think it counts as a really, really good win. But I also don't know if I would not be sympathetic to any argument say, well, Illinois is better than their record. Are they? Because teams that are that good don't lose those games. Today's loss,
Yeah.
again, no embarrassment at all for
Yeah.
them. But the other
What
two they've taken, I don't know.
I mean, I think, a lot of times we judge obviously postseason play, and this
Sure.
Illinois team, you definitely, like you said, it's got a high ceiling, pretty good floor.
Yep.
But when you rely on your shooting so much and you're not really a great shooting team, can you run six in a row? I mean, that's the
Well,
question. Like, what can you
you
do
make
in
a good point.
postseason, right?
You make a good point. They are so heavy in relying on the volume of threes that you do wonder over 6 games, yeah, what happens when the inevitable and it's even beyond that. I mean, it would just be expected that
Yeah.
they would have a clunker.
Hmm.
So can they adjust? Today I think they adjusted. They really did. And they almost got it, but they didn't get it. Can they do that in a big moment? The other side of the coin is that they do so many other things so well that it can override that. And they're not done growing either. I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
if we look back on this in March and say, yeah, they got better from there, I'm not going to be surprised. I kind of expect that'll happen.
Hmm. Yeah.
Same way I expected with Michigan State.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, let's talk about the player to keep in the gutter. Brought to you by the Brothers Jesse Gutters.
Boy, we've never gotten one as right as we did on this one, huh?
Yeah, well, it helps that the Michigan State coaching staff follows our podcast, and they text.
Yeah.
Yeah, they game plan around who we say they should keep in the gutter.
Let's make these guys look good.
Yeah, Yakunis was definitely in like a foul gutter, foul smelling one, with all kinds of like debris and stuff. And so, if you have all kinds of foul smelling debris in your gutter, call the Brothers Jesse Gutters. They can clean it out for you, so you don't have to get in there yourself. Even this kind of weather, they'll go out. They'll get on the ladder, take care of things. Then if you're smart, you'll have them put leaf guards on like I did. And now I don't have to worry about getting my gutters or have anyone come and clean them out. So head on over to our support page at the finalfoursontheschedule.com/support. There you can find ways to contact either Kurt or Greg, depending what part of the state you live on, in order to get a way to contact them for an estimate. 10% off. You mentioned Final Four when you get your estimate. Not only can they clean them out, they can replace them, they can repair them. Even if it's not your home, it can be maybe a business, high rise, whatever you might have. They can, as long as they got a ladder high enough, they can get out there and put the gutter on and take care of it, even if it's a small section. So big job, little job, they'll be out there, and they're super nice, professional, great pricing. I don't know. You can't go wrong with them. We had a number of people who listen to the show who've gone and used them, and all great words. People very excited about them. So let's look at the numbers for Yaki Kunis. Man, it'd be nice if he had an easy name. All right, so field goals. He was 1 for 3 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, hit a free throw, 3 points, no rebounds, 3 assists, no turnovers, a steal, and a block in only 9 minutes played. So, I mean, yes, we're helped by the whistle in some respects, but also, we should say it's clearly had a plan to take a guy. I mean, it's a great way to take a guy out who's going to hurt you offensively, is to try and attack him defensively if he makes mistakes, which he made a lot of, I don't know, I guess rookie mistakes, right? Like he was making contact when he didn't have to.
It was surprising because even though he's a freshman, he's not a normal freshman.
No, he's played like pro ball basically.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And so that was kind of surprising. I don't know that I would believe, I'd have to hear it, that Michigan State's plan was, we got to put this guy on the pine with foul trouble. I just think it was reflective of, in general, how they wanted to play this game, which was, let's get downhill, let's attack these guys. And it just so happened that he made those mistakes.
Yeah.
But they were mistakes. He put himself there. I will not accept any other narrative because it's a joke. He made bad decisions.
Yeah, and I would only add that Jeremy definitely went after him when he came back in the second half. Same thing.
Sure. Well,
which is smart.
It was different. It was different. When I say I don't know if it was their plan, I'm talking about the first two.
Right.
After that, yes, I think there was certainly Frankie Fiddler. I mean, come on.
Oh, well, he does that. It didn't matter who was behind him. He's going to do that move.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it was an example of him using veteran judgment and
Hmm.
smarts to go ahead and draw contact. That's what he's looking to do in those situations. But yeah, they certainly he was kept in the gutter. I mean, look, the 9 minutes he was out there, you could see what he does. He made some really nice
Hmm.
passes when he was on the floor.
Had that
Um,
steal, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this is the thing though. I He's a great player, but I thought Illinois' offense wasn't that hindered without him. I mean, when you
Didn't seem
look
much
at
different.
it,
No. Yeah.
they shot 42% from the floor. They were really effective with all that slip screen action as we were talking about. They got to the line. What did they have? They had 16 assists to 10 turnovers. Um, Ivisic had five himself, 5 assists. I mean, he was great. Boswell, 5 turnovers to go with 4 assists. I guess that was a little bit of a struggle, but I thought for the most part they overcame that at least decently, not having him. I mean, it would be one thing if you said,
Yeah.
well, when he went off the floor, like if you're watching Michigan or Northwestern teams without a point guard, and you say, well, the one guy they got who can kind of handle, make decisions was off the floor, and then it was just an adventure every time they came up court. Like, watching USC, that's another good example of that. It wasn't that at all. Illinois was still they've done a really good. It was why it was critical for them to also get a player like Boswell because and Michigan State sees this all the time, right? When you have at least a couple answers, in Michigan State's case, you got three who can play that position. Man, you are so far ahead of the game, you know, because you can withstand things like. And I do think Illinois did a pretty good job of withstanding his foul trouble. I think they deserve credit for that. They still were right there. They still played a very good game overall, highly competitive game.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they just came up a little bit short. They weren't the better team today. Sorry.
Which you expect on the road, and this is their almost their third game really with playing without him. So I guess
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
somewhat used to him not
Now
being
they're
there
one.
a
Now
little
they're
bit.
one. They're 1-2.
Yeah. Right.
But here's the other thing, and this is what sometimes people don't think about it in necessarily the right way. So he goes out, and at least in the first half, Will Riley just goes on an all-time heater.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just phenomenal. He had 16 points. Does that happen if KJ is on the floor?
Yeah.
No.
Maybe not.
I'll
Yeah. Right.
guarantee you. The way fans think about it is, oh yeah, we would have gotten all that. Plus, we would have had. No, not how it
Right.
works.
You don't have
So
extra possessions.
again,
Yeah. Right.
I think Illinois managed to ride that out to a decent level. That was my team, and I was watching that. I'd be disappointed by losing, but I would feel that overall they did a pretty good job of riding that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to Who Cleans the Glass Best, brought to you by Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Friends, if you need your glasses cleaned, your windows, I mean, or maybe some interior painting, you want to contact the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. That should be your first call. Head on over to the Squeegee Squad. You get 15% off. You mentioned Final Four when you get your estimate. You can do that at our support page at tffinots.com/support. And then that brings us to, unfortunately,
I love this switch.
yeah, this has been a disaster, really. I mean, I was up to, we kind of went to the snake draft on the rebounding, and now I'm down to 8-6 because let's see, you had Zapala and Cooper. Zapala, okay, at 4. Cooper was just a beast. He had 8
Great
in the
game from
game.
him.
Yeah, I
Should
mean,
should be should be talked about because I thought Carson he only had 4 points. He was 2 for 3 from the floor, but they were
right.
not. One was a difficult high feed lob catch, and the other was a great jump hook. So he did a nice job, but I thought defensively and on the glass
He
he
was
was lights
fantastic. Yeah, I
out.
mean, he was fantastic. I mean, that's why he played so many minutes down the end. Zapala barely played. Would he only play like 10 minutes or something in the game?
Yeah, they had
Because
that
he
right. It was
he
it
just couldn't
was it
defend
was
out
Coop
there.
it was
Yeah.
Coop and Kohler. That's who
Yeah.
it was. And I made this point on the Spartan Mag board, but Carson has as is inevitable, somebody becomes the whipping boy for morons,
Yeah.
and he was a guy that got talked about a lot earlier this season. And somebody made the comment, "Oh, he's been lights out the last 3 games. He's been great." I said, "No, this was always, yeah. Has he played better? Sure, but this is why you play him." So the idiots say 15 should get any minutes. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. The reason you play him is you are going to, it's twofold. One, you are going to need the things that he provides at certain points in a Big Ten schedule. You just are. And I said this from the start. People want to pretend that because Hunter Dickinson's out of the league and this guy's out of the league and that guy's out of the league, that there's no need to really worry about having players that can match up with 7-footers. Dead wrong. Dead wrong. And in a game like today, you pointed out exactly the issue here. You needed size to deal with Visich, but you also needed mobility because he could stretch the floor. And I've seen him kill people from 3 if you don't guard him. Carson Cooper presents, he is a card that Tom Izzo can play. And it's not going to be the same in every game. There are going to be some situations where the matchups are going to dictate that he go another direction. But there was a game today where he needed what Carson Cooper can bring, and he played him, and Carson Cooper delivered. The other thing is, if you don't play him coming up to this point, he's not in the same position to do the things you need him to do when you need him.
Right.
You know what I mean? You could talk about it, you could think about it as an investment, whatever. All that matters is you can't it's not a video game. I say that a million times, but some of these morons think it is. You can't assume that okay, well, we need Carson today and we didn't need him most of the previous 10 games. So we just play him the game that we need him. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to keep these guys. Look at Frankie Fiddler. Now, Frankie's minutes dropped, but they didn't go to 0 during a period where he wasn't doing very much. And what do you see now? You got a guy who's delivering when you need him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think before going off, I think probably we should talk a little bit more Frankie, but as far as Booker, Booker played too. He played 12 minutes, not a ton, but he was pretty effective out there.
Good first half. Good first half. Didn't do a lot in the second, but notice he started the second half in front of Zapala.
Yes, but I would also say
he earned it.
What's interesting about him on offense now too, I would say the last 2 games, before every time he caught the ball outside the 3-point arc, he was launching, like it. Now he seems to be in the offense more. Like he's not looking to shoot at the second he gets.
Yes.
He always felt like a walk-on before, like where you get on the floor, as soon as you have like an inch, you go ahead and launch.
Yep. It's just, I got to get my shots up. Yeah, absolutely. He's being much more discerning, playing well within the offense. He did it. I think it was an offensive rebound he had that he drew that foul on that got him to the line. He did take and hit a 3, which was a big one. It kind of, it was the first one Michigan State hit. So yeah, all those guys. Jackson had his moments. Even Zapala. It was not really a great game for him to play major minutes in, but he had a putback on offense. Offensive rebound. He did hit some free throws. He stepped up and he did some things. So they got those contributions. But anyway, I guess the most important part of this is it's 8-6 now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. I think so. Yeah. You can see the screen.
8-6.
Jerk. All right. Moving on to the key 5 keys of the game, brought to you by Nudge Printing, the great apparel producer in Portland, Michigan, run by some great Spartan alums, Brittany and Gabe. There you can get you really whatever you need, whether it's a t-shirt, one of those fat heads, so like the big giant wall stickers. I think you got one of those initially. We first took them on as
I did. I passed it along to a friend of mine who could use it. But yes, I did.
Yeah.
It was nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, no, they're really cool stuff. And they have a huge selection of things, not only just apparel, like I mentioned, they've got like the smaller stickers. I've got some on my laptop here, which you can't see. And then they have new custom hats, and they've got all kinds of different teams. So if it's not just Michigan State you're looking to in the market for, there are all kinds of other schools in the state of Michigan, nationally too, a couple other Big Ten schools, Iowa and Indiana. And I'm sure as you just keep watching, I'm sure Gabe's going to continue adding more options, certainly as the Big Ten expands. So check it out at nudgeprinting.com. You get 20% if you type in Final Four, just as one word at checkout to get that great discount. All right, so the 5 keys of the game will begin with, so number 1 is guarding the arc. Well, I mean, we kind of already talked about this a little bit. Michigan State did really well. And you had mentioned before, Illinois, not only are they not a great shooting team, I mean, they're 33%, which is bottom half, better than Michigan State, but still not like lights out, but huge volume. And I mean, I remember you saying they're going to get their shots up, so you just got to hope they don't hit them. They shot 20.8%. They're 5 for 24, so their volume, only 36% of their field goal attempts were three-pointers, which is well below, 12% below their average. Now, part of that is because they took what was easy, which is smart, which is the cuts to the basket, but they didn't get really any easy three. I mean, there were a couple threes, and I feel like many of them, maybe the majority of them, were off of offensive rebounds where there's kind of the scramble situation. They didn't really get too many good looks, really, which is, so Michigan State did a great job there.
Absolutely. And I wasn't sure that they could take away the three that effectively.
Right.
Because I worried about the stuff. You saw how clever Illinois can be running their stuff and how many good passers they've got. And if they, admittedly, if they'd had KJ out there, maybe it's a little
He's
different.
One of their best shooters, right? So
not only one of their best shooters, but also a guy who can make plays for others. Maybe they would have managed to get a few more attempts up. But look, the game played out the way it did. Hats off to Michigan State. A+, check mark, 5-star, whatever, however you want to put it. You hold that team way down, significantly down in looks and in percentage, you've done the job. It's just a huge part of what they do. So when you limit that, you take it away, that puts them in a bind.
Yeah, you got to find other ways to get points, right?
And they did.
Yeah.
They found ways to get points, just not enough.
Yep. Second key of the game was the boards. These are two really good offensive and defensive rebounding teams. Illinois is a little better in both. I think Illinois is averaging, I think their rebounding advantage is like 10 a game or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But either way, it was not a very good first half, as we mentioned earlier, for Michigan State from rebounding standpoint. By the end of the game, I said 42-41. It's actually 41-40 advantage Illini because they got that last rebound off that free throw.
Right.
Intentional free throw miss, although he was in a position where basically the possession was over anyway. So it ended up giving him their 15th offensive rebound for a 39% offensive rebounding rate, which is kind of around where they live. Michigan State had 13 to get them at 35%. So good effort there as well. Neither team basically shut the other team down from a defensive rebounding standpoint. So in that case, you'd say, well, that's obviously just a push.
Yeah.
I didn't look at second chance points. I guess that's the one thing I didn't check. But.
Well, let me look. I can give you that. Bear with me here.
Looks like 12-8 advantage Illinois is what I have on stat broadcast. So we'll see what you
see. Yeah, 12 exactly. 12-8.
So yeah, basically a push for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm happy. Well, happy's too strong. Satisfied.
There you go.
With the rebounding job Michigan State did because of the work they put in on the second half at both ends.
It's nice to get better second half than first half because that's been the opposite for most of the last few games.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that would go, I think. Let me take a look. No, it would not go. They still had a big second half letdown in terms of field goal defense.
Yes.
But that's for another day. Yeah.
So the third key to the game was transition. Our hope was Michigan State would get some transition. They didn't have many opportunities this game.
Yeah.
They got a couple, so they had 8 fast break points. Illinois 14. Even off points of turnovers, Michigan State only had 4. Illinois had 10. Although I don't think many of those Illinois points off turnovers were actually due to like fast breaks or something like that. But so kind of a push there, not advantage for Michigan State.
Yeah, and I guess you gotta take the official stat. But you know what we haven't said very much this year that has been a staple of these podcasts is me taking issue with the official scorekeeping when it comes to fast break points.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it here. I know what their stats say. Michigan State was a better team in transition today. Now, it wasn't like a knockout advantage.
No, they didn't get the transition 3 and stuff like that.
I have no idea what they were seeing for them to get 8 transition points. There was a segment where Michigan State, and they showed it. They showed it on the broadcast. 3 straight possessions, one of which was that high feed lob to Carr. That was like in the middle of it. 3 straight possessions where they had transition baskets, and they only got credited for 2 of them. Why? All 3 were clearly in transition. So I don't know anymore how they measure it, but it wasn't an advantage. So you could say they failed to do the job there, but they were better than I would say minimum that was a push in my mind. Watching that game, how it was played, the damage that both teams did. Yeah.
Is there some old curmudgeon-y guy sitting at the
I don't
scorer's
know.
table who's like waving his fist at the sky, like, it's not a transition
I will tell
bucket.
you this. There is a school of thought. It's not one that I subscribe to, but there is a school of thought in certain quarters that Michigan State scorekeeping historically is generous with assists. I have heard that. I don't believe that to actually be the case, but there can be those effects, especially something like that. Which, well, what is a transition basket? Does it count if you get the rebound and it ends up 5-on-5 or 4-on-4, but everybody's running, nobody stops, nobody's just, hanging out for a second, dribbling the ball, that the play is all in one continuous motion? Is that a transition basket? I would say it is. It should be, but that opinion may not be subscribed to by everybody. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that since I haven't gotten a chance to complain about that much this season. I figured high time.
We'll get that complaining before, now that the new year started.
Yeah.
And actually, when you look at assists, just when you bring that up, Illinois had an edge 16-14, which I felt like was real because I feel like Michigan State's action was mostly pick and roll and the guards sort of driving in, layups. And then for Illinois, it was off the ball screens. They're hitting the guy sliding to the basket. And so those were always assist opportunities.
And here's the thing. Give Illinois a bunch of credit defensively, because that tends to be, certainly against Michigan State, opponents know what they like to do and how they want to run offense. If you are forcing Michigan State into a lot of non-assisted baskets, what that means, that can mean different things. It can mean you're scoring a lot on putbacks. We know that wasn't the case today, but it could mean that, which would be a great thing, But mostly, usually, it's going to mean that you had a lot of one-on-one play to get scores, right? A lot of dribble penetration, and that wasn't a bad thing for Michigan State. The dribble penetration was a key part of why they got the win, because it helped get them to the line. They scored from the field on a lot of those, etc. But we know that Michigan State doesn't want to play to that extreme. They had 50% of their made field goals were assisted. That's not the number you usually expect to see. And I'm going to give Illinois some credit for kind of forcing them into that. The credit Michigan State deserves is they did that, had to play that way, still won.
Yeah. Well, so the next key to the game is the deep ball. And this is Michigan State actually hitting some threes. You said they couldn't have a game where they're shooting like 10, 12, 15%. They end up shooting only 30%, which is not great, better than Illinois, but only 3 for 10. So very low ball volume. It was a long time into the first half before they even attempted one.
Yeah.
And
look, I think it was, I think the offensive game plan was outstanding. Really was.
Yeah.
They did not, both the concept and the execution of it. They were aggressive. They looked to play downhill. And they did that, and that forced Illinois to take a lot of fouls, and Michigan State got a lot done at the rim. Conversely, they did not fall victim to what is always tempting, which is to jack threes. Especially when, and this was a game that it's so difficult to withstand that, because the game, other than, I don't know how long the stretch was where Illinois was kind of, between 7 and 10 with the lead. But for other than maybe say 10 minutes of that game, it was really hanging in a fairly tight window, right? And with so much energy in the building and so many big plays being made both ways, you could understand how guys would get seduced into taking those shots. And there were maybe one or two of them where they did that, but not many. And I think that showed great discipline. It's they
and
played
certainly
this.
with a team. Yeah, I just say with a team that shoots threes like Illinois, you're definitely, can get tricked into just doing a lot more, like you said, seduced.
But even I just mean more like, hey, we've just battled back to tie it. And now we got the ball back. Are we going to jack a three because we want to get the crowd really going crazy? There were a lot of those moments with the ebbs and flows in this game that you could see that desire to get the emotion to another level by making a big shot like that would be very difficult to withstand, but they did it. They stayed disciplined and played the game they needed to play it.
I'll just go old man on you just for a second. I would miss the times when you would just have two more timeouts and no TV timeouts. Where you could just really get those. You can get like long 7-8 minutes.
Yeah.
Until someone calls a timeout and you just have continuous play. But TV commercials pay the bills. All right. So the fifth key to the game is the free throw line. This one we hope you should say we get an advantage with a home whistle. Didn't really. They got 27 up, hit 21. Illinois hit 27, hit 17. So that Illinois shot 63%, which is a little below their average. Michigan State shot basically 78%, which is a little below their average as well. They also got those two. I mean, the difference of the game is 2 points. You could argue that was the technical foul on the bench. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't think it was Underwood. I think it was some other assistant or something.
It was Orlando Antigua who got called. It looked like to me.
Okay. Well, either way, that was the difference, I guess, you could say in the end. I mean, and they both hit the same amount of field goals. Illinois had a few more threes. Michigan State had a few more free throws. And as we talked about, obviously that's all that matters is having more at the end.
In a 2-point game, you can point to anything and say, well, that was it.
Right. But that first missed layup early in the game, right?
Was it dumb? Yeah. You can't do that. You can't do that. But here's the thing. That made it a 6-point game with whatever. I think we were at the under 4 or just about to hit it when that happened.
Might have put us under 4. I don't remember for sure.
Yeah. And Illinois came back to tie it.
Yeah.
Like immediately. MSU, I think, went scoreless on 4 straight trips, and Illinois had 3 straight scores, and it was tied. So they recovered. But, yeah, you look at it, and God, we just gave them 2. Yeah. Not smart. And you can't have it. I know they're gonna, their fans are gonna say somebody had to say something about that whistle. Shove it up your ass. I mean, I really, come on.
The whistle is it's just college whistles, right? I mean, I don't know at this point.
Yeah, it was not again. You want to, you can talk about it all you want. How many fouls? 20 apiece. How many free throw attempts? 27 apiece.
Yeah, which you don't expect on the road.
And there's no conceivable argument that Illinois played more aggressively, that the way they played should have meant that they earned more than Michigan State got. Bullshit. No way. Michigan State played a game that was designed to put Illinois in a bind and have to do that, have to take fouls. And by the way, Michigan State over the course of the season has been a significantly better team in terms of getting to the line that Illinois has. They were 48th coming in free throw attempts as a percentage of field goal attempts, and Illinois was, I think, 106th. Not bad, but that's a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, I think just wrapping up the 3 thing, I think that I'm impressed by the fact. Here's the other thing too. I'm impressed by the fact that Michigan State played so disciplined. But when you look at the guys who made those 3 threes for them, Booker, who hadn't hit one in quite a while,
right?
Cohen Carr,
yep,
and Frankie Fiddler, who came in shooting in the teens.
Yeah, they all went 1 for 1. Strangely,
none of those guys; those would not have been 3 guys you would have picked to hit threes. So again, guys making big plays in big moments. And I want to, before we wrap it, and we just touched on 2 guys, Cohen Carr and Frankie Fiddler, were huge in this game. They were huge in this game because they allowed Michigan State to at least match up to some degree physically with Illinois. I think that was important. They were both important, I think, in slowing Will Riley down, because most of Will Riley's damage was done against guys like Jaden Akins and Jace Richardson in the first half. And I think when Michigan State went bigger to deal with him, it made it tougher. He wasn't getting those lobs over the top on a slip screen.
Yeah.
That wasn't happening anymore. But I thought those two guys just made a lot of big plays. I mean, they each had 11 points. I guess Frankie had 3 rebounds, Cohen had 2, but um, Frankie Fiddler 3 assists in this game, no turnovers.
Almost had a turnover.
Yeah,
Time to call that timeout.
almost. But it
I'm
was a
not sure
great
what.
play. But he made a great decision. He made a great play to get on the floor and heady to get
Yeah.
the timeout.
Right.
Cohen Carr, 2 massive blocks.
Oh yeah.
Just those guys, and Cohen, Frankie, we've talked about. I mean, his ability to use his understanding of the game and his gamesmanship, let's call it, is starting to show through now that he's feeling more confident again.
More
That's
comfortable, I think,
obvious.
in the offense and
Yeah,
defensively. I think that's the key. Yeah.
but Cohen Carr becoming a legitimate off the dribble threat is something that I'll just speak for myself. I wasn't convinced we were going to see that this year.
Right. You knew he had it in him, but you thought he's like a year or two away from that.
I didn't think he was the jump shooting. Fine, whatever. That's great. That's a nice bonus, and that was a huge shot he hit today. But the consistency with his ability to take people off the dribble and then let his athleticism do the rest and produce buckets, massive.
Yeah, he looks for it now. It's a totally different approach when he's like, okay, I can just go in.
Yeah. It's a component of their offense that they go to by choice. And he finishes those plays. And that's, and we know this, when he gets around the rim, the only one who's going to stop him is him. Nobody out there is going to get up higher than he does. So
we didn't even talk about that last. He had a couple missed dunks against Penn State.
Yeah.
And they were asking about it in the locker room, and he said, "Well, yeah, my elbows hit the rim that one, and then another one I jumped too high." Like, these are not
exactly.
normal human problems.
Exactly.
Your elbows hitting the rim.
But he's just. I mean, I look, and it's kind of quiet. It's funny to say that about Cohen Carr, but he didn't have like a super explosive game scoring wise. He made some explosive plays, but 11 points. But people don't always notice defense. But I thought his floor game was hugely important for them. And we're seeing this consistently. And now, we're on a roll of it's like 4 straight games that Frankie has played well, that he's made serious contributions to this team. This is a big deal. Man, you're getting those guys going, and then you see, as I talked about it near the outset, Michigan State's got cards they can play. Oh, you've got big wings? We got these 2 guys. You want to go ultra small, rely on quickness? We got these 4 guys who go. We've got centers who can do some damage offensively around the room. We got another guy who's very mobile. We got a third guy who can score on the blocks. He can occasionally hit a 3, maybe better as a mid-range jump shooter, and he's a great rebounder. Then you got Book. Can make plays that nobody else on the team can make at times with his length and his athletic ability and his ability to shoot. So you got a lot of pieces here. They're not done growing either. I mean, this is 7 wins in 7 games is great, and 11 in a row overall. But there's a lot more to get out of this team. I'm convinced of that 100%. And, so now we see, you look at the rest of the schedule here in this month, you got 2 games left, right? You're at Rutgers at Madison Square Garden, which obviously we'll talk about more later in the week in a preview, but that has not been a great venue for Michigan State historically. And they've had some trouble in recent years playing Rutgers wherever they play them.
And they're playing a little better recently, of late,
They are. You're right, because they've got 3 wins now. We know they have 2, you could easily argue the 2 most talented, purely talented players in the league are both on that team. But, if you are who we think they are, Michigan State gets that one, right? And then you come home to play Minnesota. Well, you certainly should get that if you're for real.
Right.
So that could get them to 9-0 through the end of January. And then things turn up. We're going to be out there when they make that West Coast turn. And then from there, you're home and road. You don't have many, mostly the soft touches are done at that point.
Yeah.
They're going to be very competitive games, home or away. But I'll tell you, if they get to 9-0, they are set to really be in this thing until the end. I'm convinced. Even if they don't, even if they slip up, they still are. But it's been an amazing start. People always fall victim to this stuff, right? Where you look at a schedule and say, "Well, that's a win, and that's a win, and that's a win."
Yeah.
It's never like that, but they've done it. They've gone through this stretch where it was easy to say, "Hey, these are games that they should win," and they've won them. And now they finally play somebody that is universally acknowledged as a huge test, and they take care of business at home. Big deal.
Yeah. That's, I think, it's easy to forget about that. That now you're just kind of looking on. And Michigan State is undefeated in the continental United States. Just to point that out too.
That's a. No,
We've seen State of Ohio.
They're not. No, they're not.
No, that's right. Kansas was not. Yeah, my mistake.
Close.
I almost had a really kind of cool little thing there. Yeah.
Close.
So, yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, like you said, we'll be back in a couple days with the Rutgers preview, maybe something between too. We might have an interview coming up. So just stay tuned. Make sure if you're not subscribed to the show, be sure you subscribe. Continue to share it with your friends. Check out our great sponsors at our support page, the Final Four is on the schedule.com/support. Or if you're lazy, tffinots.com/support. You can find the Nudge Printing, Brothers of Just Two Gutters, the Squeegee Squad at Grand Rapids. Some great discounts with those. Some other things on the page as well if you want to get a hold of those, or ways to support the show financially, which would be greatly appreciated as always. As we mentioned, we were going to be out west, have an opportunity to finally meet each other. We're going to hang out for a week. We'll watch the USC and UCLA game. We'll be at the pep rally, which is moved locations. I think I said before, is Lab Gastropub. I think it got too big, and so they're moving it to a different location on USC's campus. I can't remember exactly where it is, but you can look it up at somewhere with a MSU Spartans. When I get the name and have it in front of me, I'll make sure I get a hold of you guys and so you know. And I guess that's probably it for this point. So until next time, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go Green.